I still have some concerns. Now, in this bond, we have two parks involved. We have Pickle Park and we have Summer Road Park. I've been on site visits to both. I have no questions about Pickle Park as it's specified here in terms of cost and bonding. But I still have concerns about Summer Road Park. I think we need to do a little bit more work on traffic, parking, and I'd like to see some effort go into looking at the water and how we're going to put some shade into that park. I know we talked about it a little last time, but I'm not comfortable. My recommendation is I'd like to have the Open Space Board at next meeting assess if we can affect some of the landscape plans and maybe move it up into the spring. I'd rather not wait for some shade trees coming after this project. I'd rather sequence things a little differently. And I'd also like Water Watch to just take a look if there's any stream impacts or drainage impacts in the streams. I could get that started on that tomorrow night when I talk to them. So I've got some concerns about the Summer Road Park components.
Jurgen, this hasn't been drawn out as a plan yet, so there's no way that anybody could plan where shade trees, for example, would need to go or whatever until there's an absolute, well, there's a plan for the pickleball courts, but I don't think there's an engineered plan for the whole thing yet. I think everybody believes that shade trees are important, but I think that's putting the cart before the horse. Let's figure out where the structures are going, and then let's...
But I don't want some of those ancillary structures before we either resolve or look at the parking and we look at the landscape plans. I'm fine if with the pickleball replacement of the hockey rink, the major component of Summer Road Park. I'm fine with that component of it. It's some of the other things I think I'd like to see some other people weigh in on that and maybe contribute to how we can sequence this next year.
You know, I think we're going to get into trouble here if we start bringing people in. We've got professionals. We have a rec committee who has worked very hard on this. We have a professional rec director. And I think once we get volunteers who are not necessarily trained in all of these things and who we have kind of let go along. Everybody has let go along with open space. We really haven't questioned most of the decisions there. And I think if we start getting Water Watch determining where we can have parks where kids and families can play.
I don't think that would be what we would ask of them. I think we would just verify where some of the C1 streams or drainage areas are.
Isn't that all part of the engineering process?
Well, I didn't get a sense that that would happen until after this project was in place. So I'm trying to...
Just as we did when we put the walking path.
Yeah.
The stormwater runoff calculations have to be done. It all is going to go through that same deliberate process of ensuring that there's the proper stormwater runoff, management, etc.
Yeah, but the practice, you make a good point. Obviously, we have a process, but we had serious flooding after that path was in, and we had open space people looking at how we could resolve that, and so we're trying to get ahead of that for the next one.
And that was a result of the path.
Yes,
Yes.
when that path was put in, there was a tremendous amount of water that was prevented from flowing its natural flow.
So in winter,
We
you
paved
have-
over it,
yeah.
and then we had to go back and build additional drainage to have that water move back in its natural course. So what we're saying here is how long is this park in operation? We've never planted a tree there for shade. It makes no sense that you didn't plant a tree 20 years ago. It would have a shade tree at this point. Now we're still adding more hardscaping, and we're not dealing with the problems. I mean, most people that you talk about that are concerned with the parking, with the amount of lack of any structure in how it's parked, and the fact that there is no shade in the property. We could have planted trees 20 years ago. We'd have shade trees.
Where were you?
Okay.
I wasn't on this committee then.
No, you don't have to be.
Yeah.
If you're worried about trees, you should have suggested it.
Well,
I'm
I'd
just-
like to do that now, so we get that, in
I just-
place concurrent with this project, not afterwards.
You're talking about spending almost $1 million here, and you have no plan whatsoever for the stormwater
That's not
management,
true
the
at
water,
all.
or the trees.
That's not true. How's that true? We have a master plan for the park. There's going to be engineering of these projects. There's no, you can't say there's no.
When we talked to Gabrielle, she didn't have any plan for the trees, she had no,
It's in the master plan. What she said was, it was not part of this project because that's the last thing you do because you're doing construction. And you don't go in and disturb the area where the landscaping is because you wind up killing it.
Right, but we think maybe some of that landscape plan in the plan, previous plan is in the wrong place. So I'd like to just,
Right, so here's what's gonna happen, right? If we table this, we're going to run into next year with this, and we're gonna pay, this number is gonna go. That's what's gonna happen,
yeah,
so.
I'd rather.
Probably delayed by a year because of the construction cycle. You know, we don't get engineering plans every time we pave a road. We allocate the money based on an estimate, and then the engineer goes forward.
Right, and that's,
None of our capital expenditures have ever gotten fully engineered plans for before we approve funding for them. They're estimates based on what we thought it was gonna cost, we thought the budget as a whole was good.
Let's do it this way, Jurgen, like you suggested with Dart's Mill. Let's pass it and then we'll figure it out later.
what's the time frame for this, John? The construction?
it'll be done in the spring. We get in front of the co-op, just like we do with roads or anything else. We put the proposal out there after it's engineered, and then we get pricing. The pricing that we have to go, put this ordinance together is based on estimate. Okay?
And this year's pricing.
And this year's pricing. It's, I mean, as Gabrielle said the last meeting, prices are going up. Right now, you're dealing with 2021 numbers. Next year, they will go up across the board. Material, labor.
Well, I'm still concerned about the parking lot, we've got grading issues. I've been there more since this has come up as a topic, obviously. I've walked it, I've looked at it, I've talked to neighbors. I would rather not do a pavilion or shade structures for pickleball courts until we can kind of add in maybe another aspect to this that would have more safety in that parking lot. And we'd probably do some reconfiguration so we get more people to park in the lot as opposed to on the road.
So when I talked to the recreation director the other day, we talked about putting together something similar to what we did with the successful walking path, which was going to Public Works, asking them what they could do in-house with the parking lot to possibly pave it, improve circulation, etc. There is also plans in the master plan, which is a fully engineered master plan of the park, to deal with improved circulation in the parking lot. That's where you're talking about safety, yes?
Yeah.
Right? Parking where people park, and, you know, having some sort of a.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be paved, it has to be graded so that there's no drop off when you enter the lot and when you get into the regular, you know, paved path of the park.
I mean, all our parks need work.
Right.
You know, the parking lot over at Hillcrest is really no better. So, it all costs money. So, to repave a huge parking lot with a couple hundred parking spaces, or however you're gonna deal with it, costs money, and we have to incrementally, you know, improve them over the years. They have not been, committed to, financially by the township in a long time, and that's why I've taken on this effort to
Yeah.
bring
The
us
other thing
along.
is, we can have a project from capital plan in the spring to cover parking in the park.
Yep.
For a fall
It's
construction,
already in the
after the
works.
spring construction is completed.
Exactly.
And also keep in mind, as I explained at the last meeting, to introduce the ordinance tonight and adopt at the first meeting in December, the estoppel period doesn't start until 20 days. The estoppel period runs from the day of publication, which is normally 2 days after the meeting, for 20 days. which brings us, by my calculation, to December 29th. It can't lapse over until the next year. You have to introduce, adopt, run a estoppel over the same calendar year. So if this does get pushed off, you're pushing it off to at least January. And some of the prices that we have quotes on now, those contracts will expire, which means we'll be back with
It's an open air vendor market like we have, we've had several times on the farm. The biggest difference is that that it takes place at night, from 6 p.m. to about 11 o'clock. We submitted an application about 2.5 weeks ago, and Ms. Parker came back to me and said that there were issues with fire zoning and construction. I've since sent out an application for the fire permit, and Mr. Smith came out to take a look at the buildings and to where we're going to have a couple of outdoor fires, no larger than 2 foot, and they were. He said that there would be no problem with that as long as I have proper suppression for those open flames. The zoning issue was basically that the block and lot number did not match up with the street address on the zoning map. There's really nothing I can do about that, and we're surprised. We've owned this farm for 26 years now, and this is the first time any of us have heard of it. Down the road, we're going to try to figure that out. And then the construction concern was basically not so much for the event that's going to be coming up, should we be getting the permit for this Friday, but for the December events, because after December 1st, any structure, even these temporary 10 by 10 pop-up tents that are going to be used by the vendors need to have a building permit in order to address snow load issues. I talked with Ms. DeVoe in construction, and our building permit application is in process, and I'm hoping that because it is in process, it doesn't affect the approval for this permit that's coming up hopefully for Friday. In the plan that I put together, the biggest issue that I felt that there was going to be was traffic and parking. So I had submitted quite a few different entrances and exits. The farm has 3 different ways to get in and out, and depending on the time of day, I'm going to be moving. I'm going to be changing the entrances and exits in order to alleviate primarily the traffic flow on 523. My biggest goal was to make sure that doesn't get congested. And at the end of the event, all of the entrances to the farm will be turned into exits, so that way the guests and vendors can distribute in an even manner. I've attended a couple of these events so far. We do anticipate somewhere between 800 and 900 people for at least the first one. We have pre-sold, the event organizer has pre-sold tickets, and she was up to about 400 as of Friday. It's probably going to end up getting to be closer to our goal by the time that the event happens. We're not going to be selling any door tickets, so whatever the pre-sold number is going to be the total population for the event. A big concern at previous events was parking, because they were parking in basically fields very similar to mine, and it was just after a rainfall, so there was a lot of mud issues. The weather forecast is looking good enough for me to be comfortable, but I've also increased my parking from 2 fields to 5, just so I can use the prime tractable land for them to be parking on.
Okay. For the public's benefit, this is a three events, 3
Yes,
days?
yes.
Separate days, this Friday, as Mr. Doyle had mentioned, Saturday, December 4th, and Saturday, December 18th, and these are evening events, so
Yes.
that's 5 p.m. till 11 p.m.
Yes.
Can you describe what will happen? I see there are vendors.
We have vendors, there will be some light entertainment is what I look at it. There will be music, people are allowed to bring drums if they wanted to have a drum circle. We're gonna keep that indoors in one of the buildings to keep the neighbors from having to hear too much of it. I have told the neighbors that are closest to the area where that will be taking place have all been notified, and they're okay with it. There will be some music, but not anything. It won't be rock and roll. It'll be more folky, and we don't have the electrical capacity to really blow anyone's doors in. So it's not going to be anything that would disturb the neighbors too badly.
Did you say too badly?
Too bad, yes.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
Yes, your ears will not bleed.